What is up, everybody? Welcome to the Logic Bomb Podcast, episode 37, and we have a special guest for you today. We got Gregor. You may know him from YouTube, Twitch. Makes really good Rainbow Six Siege content, and we're excited to have him on today. Talk about all the relevant topics within Siege. We're going to talk about Aruni, the Jager Wamai nerf, all that stuff with Operation Neon Dawn. Now that we've played it a good bit, we're going to get into some esports stuff as far as Siege is related, and then we're also going to talk about what operators we want to see reworked next year. Gregor, I guess first of all, let's give you a chance to introduce yourself, and I want to pick your brain a little bit about some of these operators, because that's kind of what you've made a name for yourself of on YouTube, right? Is like how to play operators, just really dissecting operators and breaking them down.
Well, first of all, Flank Zeronic, thanks for having me on the show. Before I get into it, so that's pretty much what I do on my show. I try to look at operator meta, not just from a purely ranked or purely comp or purely casual perspective. What I kind of try to do is go through each character as they pertain to the meta in an overall picture. At least that's sort of what I've been trying to do with my content more recently. When the channel first started out, it was pretty much just a college side job to pay my bills. And I guess I took good enough notes in class, or at least my professors would like to tell me that they were pretty happy about that. When my how to play every operator video that I uploaded, I guess that'd be 4 years or so ago now, blew up. That's pretty much the stick that I went with, and a lot of the information in that video is definitely maybe less than ideal, maybe not. Putting Habana pellets on barricaded windows is the most optimal strategy for you to go by. But at the time, it was a good experiment in terms of how to make how to get YouTube content to people's eyeballs. I wasn't so fixated on the balancing of the game as much as it was. I played this game a lot, and I figured I should just invest my time into doing something productive with it. But I think that I've gotten out of Siege what I've put into it as of late, and it's been a lot of fun. So with Aruni, I'm really intrigued by how she's going to operate in a competitive sense, because for the first time, I think I've managed to keep myself from overreacting a little bit in terms of what an operator looks like in terms of the reveal, which is exactly what I did with Tachanka, quite unfortunately, which a lot of people also did. And I remember playing.
How did you overreact with Tachanka? Like, what direction did you go?
Well, the direction I went in was that this guy looks super broken, and I was freaking out a little bit. And then I actually played him on the build for the test server, and then I just kind of had this inkling in the back of my mind, kind of like, not again. This just happened again, yeah. And so with Aruni, I initially did it when I saw the first bits of footage of it, and I was like, oh my gosh, it's indestructible. Really, you can't do this, you can't do that. And then I was like, okay, slow down a little bit. Just wait for it to come out and see how it goes. And now I'm actually pretty confident, especially with the Jager and Wamai changes. I'm pretty confident that Aruni's not gonna shake things up in a negative way too much. I think she's one of the better designed operators we've had in a while, personally.
Interesting.
So
what do you think?
What I think about that?
You've been playing and grinding over the last. Well, it's been out for a little over a week now. Operation Neon Dawn. Mm-hmm. Where are you falling in?
Well, I have almost 100 games already this season, and I've been playing her a lot. I didn't think she was going to be too strong. I thought she was over-tuned a little bit. But my issue was with the infinite amount of punches. I only saw that as a good thing. But honestly, right now, I'm getting screwed over by that punch more than it's helping me.
Random teammates?
No, so a lot of times when I'll run up and I just want to do a quick punch hole to do something. And I just have it, like a quarter of a vault hole right in front of me. Like you run into dirt to peak jacuzzi wall on Clubhouse, and all of a sudden it's just a massive hole. It's great that you can open hatches. It's hard to prep windows. Now you have to shoot them instead. So you just got to be really, really aware, because it's a big change whether you have that or not, right? The one punch thing. But for I don't know, man. Like for ranked, I think people save their utility for too long for her to be as strong as I thought she was going to be. But I think she's going to be really good in comp, where you are forced. Well, you're not forced, but the meta is, and the way that most people attack is that you deal with certain areas and then you move on, right? So you use X amount of utility to get to step 1 complete. Then you go to step 2. And by the time you're at like your execute phase, those gates might be super helpful. That's what I think.
Yeah, I definitely think as the clock winds down, not dealing with that bit of utility gets a lot more dangerous.
Yeah.
And I think that we'll see, like, you know, like Smoke isn't nearly as useful at my level of ranked as he is in comp. And I think I attribute that a lot to comp rounds playing out a little bit more predictably. That doesn't, because like it's more predictable that like they're going to try to execute from this direction. And then, you know, they're going to clear utility first and it's going to be an execute in like the last, 15 or 20 seconds, whatever. Whereas ranked rounds don't really play out like that. They can drop from this hatch over here, or they might come, so that's what I've attributed there. So it could be that logic might apply to Aruni as well, where I'm not really seeing her being used that effectively in ranked right now, but in comp, that might be a completely different story.
I also think that ranked teams tend to get a little bit more panicky whenever the timer gets like less than 30 seconds, whereas a lot of competitive teams will have strategies that play around, okay, once we get to this 20-second marker, like they have everything, they know exactly what they're going to do in that situation. So that can work to the advantage or disadvantage of whoever has Aruni in a competitive setting.
I think what I noticed in ranked is that they're almost stronger placed further away, and then you let people burn them, and then you hang around that area for about 30 seconds, you reset it, and then you go back to site. If you do that,
rotating the utility. It's kind of like how Smoke would put a deployable up on like classical hallway for Villa, and then if they check cams and they notice that there's going to be a master bedroom push, they would rotate the utility away.
Yep, exactly. Whereas in comp, I think she's better used closer to site in general.
Okay.
Because you're going to be able to reset them, and they will stop that no info push that might happen if you have a gap in your defense and all of a sudden someone just goes for it. They have to burn it first. But in ranked, it's so often that people, at least in like the high plat elo, people will have drones in their pockets all the time because they just don't use them.
Right.
They face check half of everything, right? So when they come out to this Aruni gate, they can almost always deal with it. They just throw a drone through and then they face check it anyway. So it doesn't really change the engagement as a player, except for I hear the little bzzzt.
Right.
And Wire, Gumines, Melusis could all do the same job. Now, if you have all of it at the same time,
that's really annoying
for them to deal with, right? But then there's some other weakness. Then you're missing wall denial, you're missing deployables, whatever it might be. So I think we're at the stage now where if you want to pick Aruni, there's something else you're going to pick that would have been just as strong. And no matter what combo you come up with, you're going to be missing something. As long as they can do that, then I think balancing becomes a little easier, because then we have the rock, paper, scissors thing, right? Where something will be better against what you have.
Let me ask you guys a question. What's stronger on a window? One Aruni gate or one Jager ADS?
Aruni gate. Without a doubt.
Yeah. If you were talking about old Jager, I'd say Jager, but ever since the change, I'd have to go with Aruni on that one too.
There's a couple give and takes, I guess you could say. An Aruni gate will stop a drone. I would consider that an advantage, right? But then
also stop a player.
Yeah, it'll knock a player down to 30 health. The downside would be the cooldown is
30 seconds.
Yeah, it's longer than what an ADS is.
What's the differential if you Thatcher EMP it? It's half, right? 15.
Yeah. So Thatcher doesn't close the gate; it just turns the lasers off and then instantly resets them.
Okay. Yeah, I was wondering how that worked.
Trigger them again yourself.
Okay, got it.
So that's an interesting way to think of it. I mean, that whenever I think about it like that, and you guys answer like that, I'm thinking, okay, well, maybe she is, going to be really, really strong. I think it's an interesting. I think I agree with what you said, Gregor. I think the fact that we're having this conversation and it's not like, oh my God, she's garbage, or oh my God, I think
that's going to ruin everything.
She's in a good place, probably. It's probably a good sign. Me personally, I'm having a hard time with her because I find myself really missing some type of throwable, either an impact or a nitro cell. And that's no fault to her or her design or anything. I think that maybe she's just kind of made me realize how much I prefer to have one of those devices on me pretty much at all times.
I think it's a testament to how versatile an operator can be just if they have impact grenades. Like I remember a video that you made, Flank, talking about Alibi. I don't know. I don't remember when you made it, but you were talking about how this operator has the ability to force people into to provide intel, right? If they want to pre-fire a certain angle, they can't pre-fire it as effectively. Sure. And she has impact grenades, and she has a bailiff. With Aruni, I think what they tried to do to keep her from being really, in part, I think, to keep people from freaking out, and also in part to actually balance her, was to give her a primary weapon that had a very small magazine, but a high rate of fire, right? So that way, if you had good enough aim, you could take advantage of that, but it wasn't busted, right? Right. And also a DMR, which I found kind of funny. I remember when people saw that she had a DMR, a lot of people were concerned that she was going to be kind of busted because of the DMR. And I ended up eventually making a video kind of talking about it in detail. And my conclusion on that was more or less, no. I mean, I get it, but I get where people are coming from with it.
Is her DMR as good as the TCSG was?
No, the TCSG was. I was surprised it took as long as it did to nerf it. I remember doing the Cade video a couple of years ago, and I had a bit in the Cade video literally talking about how they literally gave people Glaz's gun with an ACOG and you could make rotates with it. It was like, what?
Well, the weird thing when they freak out about the DMR is that we have the AA12, right?
Right.
On Alibi Maestro, that thing slaps. We already have the Boss G. Sure, it's just 2 shots, but it does way more damage than any of the other ones. We have the TCSG. That one's been nerfed a lot, but it's still very strong. It's not like her DMR is the attacker DMR. It doesn't have a muzzle brake. It doesn't have ACOG or any like high magnification, right? It has 1.5, I think, is max.
Yeah.
When was the last time you saw anyone run a DMR with like hollow and actually slap with it?
Yeah.
No, that's rare, right? We can find a few comp games where people were running Lion, Buck, Lion, or Twitch DMR, and then of course you run DMR and Dokkaebi because you have to. Because the other choice is so bad. But I don't think fire rate is king.
Yep.
And then ammo is king. So no, it's not worth panicking about. Like if it was actually too strong, then the Bust G would have been too strong as well.
Yep. I agree. I think more people are going to use the Roni in comp for sure.
I would agree.
Yeah.
I think that the other big thing this season that I'm kind of tracking right now is the Jager Wamai nerf.
Huge.
Huge change. Here's what I'll say, and then I'll obviously take it away, Greg. It hasn't came out and punched me in the face though, but I think that's at the fault of the player. I do think it's a significant change. I really do, but I don't think that the players I've been against yet, or myself personally, have taken advantage of it yet. We're not really playing around it yet. We're still playing it like it still exists, and we haven't really registered with us what has changed.
Yeah, I think that it's going to, for one, it's going to give flashbangs a little bit more of a presence in the game to a certain extent, I believe, because at one point, flashbangs, instead of being used as tools to route defenders out of spots that normally it would be very difficult to take a gunfight there, they were used to just burn ADSs and Wamai discs, which wasn't really, as far as I could tell, if I was a dev at Ubisoft, I don't think that's what they were trying to go for with that. I think a lot of things in this game, as complicated as it is, I think how many operators are we at? 58?
52.
50, I don't know. I'm the operator guy and I forgot.
I get asked that question like every
one.
We get it wrong.
I forget, but like a lot of characters, right? And at a certain point, there are going to be parts of the game that just you just don't know, like you just don't notice it. And in terms of the competitive meta, something that I've considered a lot when Wamai got added, something that I remember doing a piece of content for the Disrupt page a while ago, where I looked at just Wamai's pick rate in relation to Jager's pick rate. And there was a certain, I forget which season it was, but there was a stretch of the North American pro league scene. And obviously different scenes use different, tend to have different kinds of strategies and things that they do that differentiate them from others. But there was a point at which the whole bracket of games that I was watching, Wamai wasn't necessarily an uncommon pick, but he was never brought unless there was a Jager as well. So he might have had maybe about a 40 to 35% presence over the course of rounds, but he was never there unless Jager was also there. So a lot of people realize the potential of just stacking utility now in terms of just catching all the stuff that you could use to keep the bulletproof utility that you wanted to stay up. And that's where the term utility simulator has come from. So while I don't think in ranked it's going to be as prevalent, because let's be honest, not a lot of people have the time to gamify and theory craft a lot of these spots and really kind of understand what makes them work. That's one thing that's also been kind of a difficult thing that I try to do with my content is how do I explain why this deployable shield spot works? Because I don't want to just tell people to put down a gadget and then just say, do that. And in some instances, I have done that in the past and thought I could kind of get away with it. But in more recent memory, I try to make an effort to not only explain it, not for the audience, but also myself. Because if I don't know if something works in ranked, then I'm not going to be able to duplicate it again in the event that something goes wrong. I'm not going to be able to adapt to a situation where I get to higher elo and then it gets countered and then I go, well, what the heck just happened? Right? If that sounds a bit rambly to answer the question.
No, I think that makes perfect sense. And I think that we all kind of fall into traps of we copy other people and we just assume, hey, this works for them. It works for me.
It's this game is very, very trial and error dependent. Like you can definitely get your butt kicked a lot before you figure out what to do, because it's just a matter of statistics. This game is very statistics based. I think that the more trials that you have in a particular given experiment, the more reliable the results are going to be. And it just so happens that the competitive scene, a lot of people are under the impression that Ubisoft is only balancing the game around the competitive scene. And it's just what was the tweet? Red Bull addicts. I remember seeing a tweet like that. It's just like Ubisoft is catering to these Red Bull addicts, these pro Red Bull addicts. And I was just kind of like, well, in when you have an instance in which the competitive scene has more trials to work with in terms of especially gadget placements, because that's a very static thing. And there's so much static stuff on defense. There's not a lot of static stuff on attack. Like how much stuff can you really place on attack, right? I guess gridlock, nomad.
Yeah, but
yeah.
I mean, it's so flawed to start with because like just unironically saying that it's only balanced for competitive, like just think about it. Like the casual community makes up 99.9% of the.
I wish it was.
Of course, they are focusing
selfishly
on the casual player base, right? And the pros are saying that no one listens to them. The casuals are saying that no one listens.
Who's right?
Maybe
someone has to be right.
Make what they think is right. Yeah, maybe the devs just make what they think are right, and then people will claim it as theirs or made for them.
Yeah.
Whenever it suits them, and it's for the other ones whenever it doesn't, right? But the Jager Wamai thing is going to change a lot now because Wamai losing his shield.
That's a big deal. Yeah.
In my opinion, than most of the other stuff, because you said Jager and Wamai almost always gets combined, which is true. And if you do that now, and let's say you want to squeeze an Aruni in, sure, you have 3 things that stop throwable stuff, but you got no deployable shields in that now. Then you
still need to bring wall denial or a smoke. Yeah.
Yep. And then you want to squeeze a little bit of intel in at some point, maybe?
Or mute
depending on the site.
Mute Monty combo is still strong. I mean,
yeah. So you have 1 slot left for a deployable. Well, you have 2 slots left, and in those 2 slots, you need wall denial, intel, shield, maybe some C4. Like now it's getting into this thing where people make up these horror stories of, oh, but we're gonna have this set up here and this and this and this and this and this, and now you have all your gadgets and you have 5 players all set up in Oregon just to cover bunker, and they attack from free.
Exactly.
Shit.
Yeah.
Right. Like, it's so easy to come up with these examples where but we can't do anything.
Yeah. What's the fallacy to describe that? It's like it's like where you try to create a hypothesis to prove your hypothesis. I forget the terminology for it.
I just say theory crap.
It's kind of it's just a very similar kind of scenario where it's like, well, if this and this happens, then this could happen and it's really bad. It's like, well, yeah, but what?
But that's what we do every time the new operator comes out.
Yeah.
Like, so I hear the same exact argument every time. They go, oh, all the new operators are busted. But we have to go, like, we can go pretty far back and only find like one operator that was busted. If we go all the way back to Lion, the only thing that was like really too strong when it came out was probably Goyo.
And that's I would say Melusi.
Yeah, okay, sure. But she was not fun. But statistically, if that's what we're right, like if we split because I don't think it's fun being in a Melusi thing either. But I don't think she like massively skewed the win rate.
No, you're probably right about that. Right? You're probably right about that. And the thing was,
I think. Yeah, go ahead.
We didn't have pick and ban whenever Lion came out, so it was like, here's this operator, and guess what? There's nothing you can do. Like, at least we can ban.
Yeah, good luck. Here, deal with it. Yeah. And the other thing about Melusi, I think the thing about any kind of elimination 5v5 FPS game, it's people can work on their mechanical gun skill to a point where they can, to a certain extent, make up for certain mistakes, right? It sort of gives you a little bit of cushion and wiggle room in some situations, like if you face check something that you weren't necessarily supposed to, and then if you have the appropriate gun skill, you can win that gunfight, and then you're not going to notice that maybe that wasn't exactly the correct play to make. So I think that people, in this sense, whenever something gets added to the game that makes it more difficult for them to take a gunfight the way they want. I mean, I get it. Like, I grew up playing Halo and COD. I mean, those games respectively didn't really have a lot in terms of like scaling back the amounts of gunfights you could take. That was the premier point of those games. But I think to Zeronic's point, it's very important to look at. I just look at stats, man. Stats don't lie. If you just look at the win rate and the presence, not necessarily off of the win delta charts that UB likes to put out for ranked. I think that population is useful information. I like to look at comp. I think that gives a little bit more fair, helps give a more fair description of what's taking place in the meta of a game. But I
both of those are super interesting though. Like the win or the win delta, right, and the comp. And I'm massive. Like, I really like the graphs, the stat stuff, but they can be so misleading depending on what you want to prove
exactly
with them, right? Because it's very easy to come with a narrative where you say that, well, this thing is broken because of C, it's up here, and then you can like fit that into whatever you're trying to make a point about. But a lot of the time, some of them are just played more because people enjoy them more. They're more fun. Maybe whenever they're played, certain other things are not played that makes a negative impact in the win rate, or the other way around. Like, I refuse to believe that Glass was bad, for example, and he is horrendous on the win delta, right? But the few times we actually see him played, even in comp, he's normally actually doing pretty well.
I think sample size has a lot to do with that.
Yeah, exactly. But that's the thing as well. When we were talking about, I can't remember who we had on, Dylan, if it was, I think it was Matt Lacombe talking about guns. Like, some guns just stand out immensely, right? Like the FMG on Nuke was outperforming everything. But Nuke was fairly new. The gun hadn't been on attack very long. It's a sneaky operator that gets past cameras and is probably played mostly by Ash mains trying it out, right? Like, there are so many things that, like, why is this gun performing so damn well compared to guns that are definitely better on paper? It's good to be like, what is it they say? I mean, the Siege devs is saying that as well. Like, data informed but not driven or something.
It was Veli who said on a cast that stats are like bikinis. They show a lot, but not everything. I think it's a very good point.
I'd kind of like to go back to one thing you mentioned when you were kind of introducing yourself there, Gregor, and that you've been making Siege videos for a long time. There's some stuff that you made a long time ago that you look back and it may not have been the best advice to be taking now, or might not be relevant now. I fall in that same thing. I've been making Siege videos for over 5 years now, and like I go back and I look, some really old videos of me, talking about stuff and. I was telling you earlier, I made a make Blackbeard great again video where I was begging for Blackbeard nerfs or Blackbeard buffs. I'm sorry. I was actually begging for
Nerfbeard. That was the Reddit nickname. It's still pretty prevalent, isn't it? Nerfbeard.
Nerfbeard. Absolutely. Yeah. So when you look back at like those videos, have you ever thought about like taking them down? Have you what's been your approach there? Like, because I know for me, like, I've thought about that. Like, should I take this down? But
ad revenue.
Yeah, money.
Story. It's a story of progression.
Money. And are you kidding? That how to play every operator that got like, I think it's still like 4 million hits right now.
Yeah, that's great.
It's like
I gotta keep that one up.
It'll keep going too. Yeah, I'm okay with that.
I like to say admirable, but really it's just about.
It's such a fair question though, because it has to be it has to be difficult trying to make a guide for an operator if you know that they're maybe likely to get changed in 3 months or 6 months. Like, how do you
more content?
Well, fair enough.
More videos. I mean, it is a little frustrating because I remember I literally did like an updated Jager how-to because at one point, I don't know why I thought this. I think it was just, like when you play a game for the first time with your friends without really like diving too deep into it, one of your buddies says like, "Oh, dude, I love the recoil with the suppressor. Just something about it just feels really nice." And you're just like, "Okay." And then you put it on and then your YouTube channel blows up and then you make a video. That was another one. Jager, if you put a suppressor on the 416, really helps with the recoil. And I was just like, as somebody pointed that out to me in Twitch chat once, and I was just like,
yeah, people are
okay. I guess I got to update that video, guys. All right, next how-to is going to be blah blah blah, and then I did that, and then Jager got nerfed really hard. But sometimes the nerfs and the changes aren't enough to really affect the actual gameplay style of the operator that much. I guess the main thing you could take away with Jager right now is the idea that you could Jager trick, like pick up the ADS and then put it back up. I'm not nearly mechanically skilled enough to get to the point where I can pull that off and do it without getting shot in the back of the head or the side of the head. But I'm sure that there's some instances in which, hey, that might be a good idea. But usually if the change is drastic enough, I just kind of go, okay, I'll put like a 2020 or a 2021 next to it and go, okay, here's the new video. And that's just, it's just kind of how it is. Most of the traffic that you get on a video is up. It comes within the next 24 to 48 hours anyway. Yeah. So
I think that there's also something to be said about telling the story of your progression as a player. Like, and there's still to this day, there is a group of players out there, especially beginning low-level players, who think that Blackbeard is absolutely useless. Like, why do I bring he's got a shield, it's disintegrated in one bullet, and then I just die. He's got a bad gun, he moves really slow. And that's where I was. There was a point in my player progression where that was the viewpoint that I had. And that same thing.
Man, don't watch me on Twitch. Anytime I get killed by a Blackbeard, anytime I'm in a gunfight and I hear the and then I die, I'm like, it's bad. I can't take it. But like,
get endlessly far up in Elo though, because I'm surprised. Like, there are so many people in very high rank and so many very, very good players, like extremely skilled, that are missing so many of like the ways that you could use certain utility. And it's not like they're 9 times better than I'll ever be in terms of mechanical skill, right? They're so much better. But they never think of the fact that you can use this gadget in this way, or
there's a lot of things that get overlooked.
Yeah, I think it's because it's so easy just to play Siege. Like, to just play it, right? You understand like 50% of it, and you're probably going to be fine. You don't always need to have the the answer to whatever puzzle you're in if you can just gun your way through.
Mhm.
And a lot of people will do that, and then they'll lose the gunfight, and they'll be like, I couldn't have done anything. I just lost my fight. But like small things like the batteries in Clubhouse on casual, right? Like you can remove those in like 900 different ways. There are so many ways you can get those. And funnily enough, the stuff we see the most in ranked is like half-assed copy of how competitive would do it. Sometimes you see people go up and they'll EMP and then they'll do the concussion stuff with Sophia through the drone hole. Maybe the door's barricaded. Maybe they don't really understand why they did even barricaded. Maybe there's a shield, but the ADS is placed wrong, and like things just don't really link up. Instead of just going below and ash charging it from main door prone, done, right? Or people jump into blue to ash charge it. Why not do it from main door? They cali it, but they cali once and then they put the thermite charge on, and now it doesn't help because now you can still bandit trick and cali it again, take the thermite charge. So there's so many of these like small technical things that are really, I don't know, getting people caught off guard, where if they knew that, they'd be much better. But it's so hard to get in and like sit down and learn.
It's kind of like learning a martial art. I don't know if any of you did something along those lines, but it's kind of like a martial art in the sense of if you have decent enough reflexes and decent enough strength to overcome being able to make certain technical mistakes, then yeah, I mean, I'm sure, you know, any of the bar fights you might have gotten into, you probably did it pretty okay. And then the guy that I trained under when I was a kid, who, if you took one look at him, he didn't really look like a UFC fighter by any stretch of the imagination, right? But I watched this guy demonstrate a technique to me when I was having trouble breaking a board, and he was basically just like, "You're overthinking it. Here, watch." And they just took his 2 fingers and just snapped it right in half. 2 fingers. I don't know what. At 24, I still have no idea what the heck he did. I wish he explained it just a tiny bit better at the time, but it looked pretty cool and it proved a point. So, you know, and then if you spar with sparring, I think has a lot to do with gauging skill level and noticing defects in your craft. There's just going to be certain things that people will take advantage of that you don't get unless it's explained to you. And the only way to do that is to, well, get your butt kicked.
Yep.
So, you know, it's just kind of how it is. And people don't like playing video games to get their butt kicked unless they feel like they're going to get something out of it later down the line, unless they're going to like get some kind of investment in it later down the line. That's why a lot of people that I know just avoid rank completely.
That's a weird thing with like competitive games, and whether you're playing ranked or unranked or casual, like at the end of the, you're still competing against the people on the other team, right? So no one enjoys losing, but people want to learn, and they can't do that by just winning.
Yep.
So it's a weird thing because you really want both. Like you want to lose and then learn from your loss, but what most of us do, and I know this is true because it happens to me as well, is that we lose and we go like, oh, damn it. Like it bothers us a little bit that we lost that one, right? Yeah. And instead of instantly looking at it like, okay, don't worry, this is just one loss in another 10,000 I'll end up having, right? Just learn a little bit from this and then go into the next one.
The amount of abuse this armrest has gotten on stream, it's very impressive that it's still held up after all this time.
You know, I used to break controllers when I played on console, but
I never got to a controller breaking moment. I haven't done that yet.
I've been several. It was a bad, awful.
Oh,
How much did it take? How much did it take to get flanked to break a controller? How quickly?
You know, it was mostly in COD. It didn't take.
That'll do it.
Didn't take much.
COD.
Was it like a claymore or a noob tube, or was it a 12-year-old screen that
you? It was usually a combination of things, not more than just a single instance. Like if I'm playing well, I'm not going to break a controller. I'll say that. Yeah, usually a full day mind.
So what you're saying is you're actually insane at Siege now because you haven't broken anything.
Yeah, logic.
There we go.
So we're saying our stats don't lie, right? You know, I mean, I think I must be great at Siege. We were talking a little bit before we went live here about a video that I made talking about the esports, you know, struggling a little bit and feeling like, you know, what I think could be improved in esports. And you guys were saying we want to talk about that live. Basically, you know, my video is just that I feel like that watching Siege is very difficult for the average person because the way that we choose to spectate Siege, we've not made any innovations. I think I say in that video that we're spectating Siege the same way we spectate CSGO, which is actually insane. That we're using those same.
Yeah, I agree.
Destruction. We have unique operators. We have all this different stuff, and we're trying to watch it the same way you watch other FPSs. But I also, I think what stuck out to most people in that video was I counted the amount of time it took between a round ending and when the first kill happened in the very next round, and it ended up being like 3.5 minutes. And, I made the point in that video that I don't think that most people are willing to sit with that much downtime in between every single round. What were you guys' thoughts on that?
I agree. I remember going back to earlier what I was talking about with the Jager Wamai stat tracking, like just trying to figure out like gadget placements. Like I was doing that for a video, so it seemed to take a little bit less time in the back of my mind. How you're doing something that you're engaged in. It seems like time's flying by a little bit quicker. But when I was just watching the games, just for the sheer entertainment of it, it's every once in a while I kind of get this in the back of my head where I'm like, oh, I'm a part of the Siege community. Let me NPC and participate in the Siege community by watching Siege Esports. And then I'll just kind of sit there for a little bit sometimes if the game's not that exciting, and I'll just be like, what? Oh, okay. Like it's really bizarre, like how the scene doesn't really seem to. I don't want to like get at anybody or come at anybody, so that's why I'm using kind of vague terminology. But it seems that the scene doesn't seem very concerned about the pacing of the broadcasts. And I feel kind of bad for the casters, especially because there's so many instances in which the casters have to fill dead air.
Dude, no.
And I've worked in broadcasting, like I did radio in college, and I've pretty much worked in audio my whole life. And that's very difficult to do live on air, to just
every round.
Basically BS for not saying that they're BSing, but that's essentially kind of what you're doing when you have dead air, is just trying to come up with crap to say to fill the space, and it's very difficult. Like, it's not easy.
But what do you mean what do you mean in terms of production?
So if there are instances, and
I might be able to explain something.
There are often instances, again, not coming at anyone at all. I understand what it's like from a production standpoint to do this kind of work, because I worked at a TV studio. Anytime there's a technical difficulty of some kind, where it's like there's like a server issue, or there's a technical problem of some kind, like a mic's not working, or this, something on the mixer isn't working this way. Sometimes there'll be like 5 to 10 minutes of downtime, and it's one of those situations where the casters kind of have to sit there and go like, okay, now we're going to finally like cut the break. When you're sitting there like waiting to cut to break, that's very annoying to just kind of like go around and try to like feed information to talk about like, oh, well, that last round, I think that there was something very interesting about how the way that they did this take. What do you think is going through the players' minds right now? Well, the psychological advantage right now is really important for them to keep this momentum. And now that this break has taken place, it's going to be difficult for them to keep that. There was a SNL skit. This might fly over a lot of not sports watchers' heads, but there was a Super Bowl a while ago. You might remember this one, Flanked, where I think it was the Ravens and the 49ers. I forget where the power went out. Yeah, and they had this SNL skit talking about how the broadcast had to basically like come up with stuff to say for like an hour while the power was out, and they just kept saying the same thing over and over again. It's like, well, we'll cut back to you, Frank. There's nothing new to report, Ed. Back to you. Oh, crap. 2 Broke Girls live 8 p.m. Great show. Again. Like that must be frustrating from a technical point of view. I also think that in terms of what you were talking about, Flanked, with rounds, like action in between rounds, that's also very boring, especially if you're trying to get new people into the game that don't necessarily like know what's going on, because then there's like 30 minutes of walking up to the building, and like what's important about walking up to the building. The observer has to find something specific to kind of look at. So they do the thing where they just sort of like look around at the prep phase, and they're like, okay, here's what's going on. Is this exciting yet? This is cool, right? He's making her rotate on that staircase. Cool.
I think it's super important to split those two though, because like one is technical difficulties, and the other one is the game. So technical difficulties, like I've sat with some of them, actually quite a few, and it's quite simple. Like it's someone DCs, someone's PC shit, Uplay is having issues, the game crashes, whatever it might be. None of those can be affected by like any feedback, right? Like it just has to be fixed.
Right.
Just do better, whatever. Like I don't really care what the solution is. It should
fix it. Forehead.
Yeah, I mean, like that is literally the only feedback you can get there. The other one is like the other stuff is opinions, and that's way more interesting because there's not going to be a single person that will defend like the game crashing. I was playing with Helby today, and he said something funny. He was like, when you launch CS, you're like, okay, I'm going to be playing CS until I close the game. When you launch Siege, you're like, I'm probably going to crash at least twice.
Like, well, I, for one, Zeronic, think there should be more game crashes. That's my opinion. That's a joke.
Fair
there's not a lot of nuance of opinions there. Yeah.
No, exactly. So it's like that's not that interesting to me because like every person will agree that we should have less downtime and there should be less like the same players need to be on time. That has been a big issue as well. Players just not being in the lobby. You know, like maybe you gotta hurry up a bit there sometimes. Yeah. I will say that is maybe 10% of maybe less, but it sucks just as much if people are late or if like I don't think production has ever actually been late in any of the stuff I've worked.
Oh, I'm sure. I mean, that's a big company, man. There's
always like it's always the game, or servers or internet or something that's like kind of out of the working people's hands at least. But for the game itself, we need to figure out if we want to. Are we looking at Siege as a normal shooter when we spectate it, or are we looking at it like a long-term strategical show, like Dota or something like that? Because
that's interesting.
Let's try and solve the problem just for the case of like conversation. If we want to cut down the time in between rounds from like last kill to first kill, we can't really make the pick phase too much faster because people still need time to like actually say that they're picking stuff. Then we can cut out all the like let's just remove all the animations between like all the flashy stuff. So when you click, it's just done, right? And you can maybe even accept and then bypass. Most teams would probably use all the time they have. So the longest or the minimum time that you allow them to use, they're definitely going to use.
Maybe get rid of 6-pick.
Yeah, but so if you
what mechanically does 6-pick do?
Quite a lot.
What if there wasn't a reveal phase? What if there wasn't a reveal phase? Period.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. If you remove 6-pick, you have to remove reveal because then we're back to square one. The problem you then have is that now we're going to spend a little longer figuring out what's going on. So now you might actually make
that would slow it down, because I would have to get more intel on the attacker side.
Yeah. Which might actually make the meta a little more stale because now if you let's say you run Mutant Mossy, you wouldn't know. So now you can't drone anything. You can't figure out are they right now you're actually speeding up the gameplay because if you run Clubhouse and you know that top floor is locked and you see
Mutant Mossy, you know exactly what's gonna.
You're like, oh, they're probably doing an SSG roam, right? Like probably, but that's where you could 6-pick out of one of them and then just bunker down on site. So 6-pick actually has a pretty like strategical advantage. I don't think it's used enough because honestly, you could afford to 6-pick every single round, no matter what, just to leave it like a little bit of confusion. Most times it won't have that big of an impact, but we have seen games where 6-pick has mattered. So we could scale like all the animations down. We could remove 6-pick, remove reveal. I think that would make the game worse. Maybe it wouldn't, but drone phase could be changed, but by how much? So they sped up the reinforcements now. That gives, but if we then cut down the prep phase, now you're at the same shitty situation as you.
We don't know what's happening.
I'm not sure.
No, where you don't have enough time to set up as a defender.
Oh, I see what you mean. Yeah.
Like so the benefit we get from reinforcing being faster would be cut if we were to remove like 10 seconds from the prep phase.
As somebody who has tested a lot of this stuff out, Zeronic, I don't think the prep phase is where you should be cutting time in this game.
I agree.
I've tried, and I don't have the tools that the devs have clearly, but I don't think that's where you should be cutting time.
I was thinking of something from an observer stand. Sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was thinking of something from an observer standpoint. What if there was a way to see, like, I might be overlooking this completely. Aren't most gadgets, like, they're not transparent in the, like, overhead camera thing for the spectating, right?
They're not highlighted. The gadgets are not highlighted. There was a bug where they were at one time, but not anymore.
I think that might be an interesting idea to not necessarily, like, the issue also, you have to also take into account visual design.
Yeah.
You also have to make sure that the broadcast itself is actually visually appealing. So if there was just a bunch of, like, white glowy stuff all over the screen, that might look kind of weird.
Yeah, and from a technical standpoint, that would actually suck for compression as well.
Oh boy.
So if you make right now, if they're streaming at like 6,000 bitrate or whatever they're using, because I'm sure they have like a broadcasting channel or something, so they can probably get a little bit more bitrate than everyone else. But I do think they're around like 6,000 or 8,000 bitrate. If they start putting in like thin white outlines everywhere, compression will shit on the quality.
Well,
so that's a little bit of an oof, because there's already things in Siege where destruction and all the debris and all the different like contrast and color and just how Siege works compared to CS, that if you were to compare a CS broadcast at the same bitrate to Siege will always look worse in fast motion.
Dang.
And there's nothing they can do about it, like technically, except for running higher bitrate. And then you start having the issue with half of the people can actually receive it in that bitrate. So like things scale up and snowball real quick. I'm all for like having the outline being like a toggle, so they can set on like an X-rays, like in CS where you can get the laser thing coming out of the guns, right?
That'd be an interesting idea. How difficult would it be to do the laser thing in Siege? Would it even contribute anything to
it's probably not that difficult. You're just throwing you're just drawing a line from where the bullets spawn. So that would literally just be a long line coming out of the eye of every operator.
Something I noticed during the Valorant cast for First Strike is they did a lot of picture-in-picture stuff. They used a lot of, I guess they must have some kind of like camera system in the game, like some kind of replay system that they use, similar to what they did with like Halo for a long time, like the theater mode, where all the mechanics for the theater mode, I guess whatever they built in the in-game engine, they have like a free floating camera that they can move around.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure Spectators free float in Valorant.
Okay.
Like they have free cam plus, of course, like when you're doing any kind of decent sized broadcast, you will have picture from every player. So all big events, all screens are recorded, and you can like jump between whatever you want, which is why like at LAN majors and stuff, it's easy for them to do picture in picture.
Yeah.
No problem. For live broadcasts,
a little bit more difficult.
Not LAN, it is extremely difficult because there's only 2 observer slots. And just for safety, you need both in case, like, what if the main observer PC crashes or blue screens or whatever, right? You can't just
there's more contingencies involved.
Backup. Yeah, like you need a backup, and I know for a fact you have a backup on every single other game as well. You will always have a backup on the live broadcast, which means whenever you see like an actual crash, it's normally worse, right? Because your backup already failed you. But I don't know. Like, I talked to someone came in chat the other day, and I tried to do like a straw poll of it because someone was saying, "Oh, I hate the top-down view," and someone else was like, "I wish they only did top-down view," and all of a sudden, half of the chat was split on we want more top-down view, and the other half was we want more first-person view. So clearly, there's some sort of like we're not aligned on what it is we want to watch. Like we don't, as a community, really know. Do we want to treat this as like Valorant or CS or like a normal shooter, or do we want to look at like the technical, tactical, top-down view and understand that? And I think a big issue is that the gunfights are too easy in Siege. They're
and over so fast,
which means that, yeah, but like if the recoil was like 10 times worse, and it took a little longer to kill people, so the gadgets had more value and like if we were getting hyped about people opening a mirror window, but we don't care. We're like, yeah, of course.
Can you imagine a Twitch drone at a LAN going by to get a mirror window and everyone's like, ah, as soon as it opens.
Yeah. But think about it, like that's kind of what like in Dota, watching that and someone does like a sick play, right? Like that could be a counter spell or like just watching something or like
or an Overwatch where there's a really powerful combo that gets hit. Yeah.
Even if you don't win that engagement, that fight, it still gets some hype, right? Like how many people appreciate Oregon bunker take if they actually get bunker within 30 seconds? That's sick. Like, do you have any idea how aligned they have to be and how much it means, right? Or smoke dying early on. That's literally like every attacker sitting there thinking, we have 60 seconds extra. Yeah. Like that, easy peasy, right? And we as players sit there and watch and go, nice, good shot. On to the next one. Come on, more clips, right? We just want to see people get 4Ks. That's
very ironic in a game that is so contingent on planning and
but
executions.
I think we as viewers expect that, and I'm not talking on behalf of anyone else than me, because I know I do that when I'm sitting and watching Pro League. While I appreciate all the strategical stuff, and that is the reason that I play Siege, when I watch a comp game, I'm sitting there looking for like the YouTube clip, and that's such. It's
kind of like
because in CS, in CS, I feel like I get more of the tactical perspective, seeing an execute with good smokes, good flashes, which is a much faster game with much less stuff in it, but I have time to appreciate what's happening. I don't
I think Siege. A lot of what Siege is dealing with from a broadcasting and competitive like sports marketing perspective is kind of a lot of the same problems that baseball kind of suffers with in the US, where even other players, baseball players, have said that they don't really watch baseball on the TV because it's boring. And these are guys that get paid millions of dollars to play baseball. You know, it's obviously a lot more engaging when you're actually playing the game. The way that baseball kind of stayed relevant in terms of, you know, gaining revenue is the live event aspect of it, right? Like going to a stadium, like the atmosphere of a stadium and the concessions and the actual like atmosphere of people like getting really hyped up and actually getting to see the play like with your own eyes. It's a totally different viewing experience than seeing it on the TV. Now, obviously, if you go to like playoff ball, the stakes are a little bit higher, and then that's where they get a lot of engagement. But in the regular season, it can be a real just snooze fest, man. Like,
fall asleep on the podcast. I'm going to start taking offense. Let me for like scoot us back a little bit and try to identify the problem. Okay, you mentioned that you watched Valorant First Strike, right? Greg,
I watched a little bit of the. It was the semifinals and then the finals, a couple of those games.
So did I. Now, what kind of Valorant player would you consider yourself? Like, I mean,
I usually play. I mean, pretty kind of the same role that I play in Siege. I'm usually the support.
No. I'm saying, how much do you play?
What do you like?
Rabid Valorant fan?
Okay,
hard Valorant fan or like casual or what describe yourself?
Casual. I mean, I wasn't really I played the beta like quite a bit, like when it came out, and then it got officially released, and then I had to work on Siege content, you know, so it's like a big time sink.
The question I would have is, and by the way, there were like at one point for the finals, there were like 250,000 people watching Valorant across multiple channels. Numbers we haven't seen in Siege in a long time. Do you think that that Siege is capturing the same level of player for their esport events as you were for Valorant? You know what I mean? Because I watched some of it. I probably in the last.
You think it's getting the same demographic, or?
I'm saying if like I've played probably 10 hours of Valorant in the last month, and I didn't watch a little bit of their esports event. Do you think that somebody who plays 10 hours a month of Siege is watching any Siege esports?
Probably not.
I would agree with that. And here's my question: how do we get people who aren't just straight up hardcore Siege fans and people who are already interested in comp? How do we start converting more Siege players into Siege Esport viewers? Here.
But the only reason that I say that is because I think it's more of a marketing thing. I think it's something that Ubisoft. Yeah. I think that there are a lot of things. There are a lot of tactics from a PR and a marketing perspective that they can do to entice people to come out and watch. I'm not saying they don't do anything. They do quite a lot. But yeah, there's always room for improvement, right? So,
well, with Valorant, so what was
there was 250,000 across multiple channels.
Was that on Valorant?
What's that?
As the game? Was that on Twitch for the game or on the main channel?
No. They allowed you to simulcast. So like Ninja had like 50,000 people watching it.
Yeah, this is important because that changes everything. Because the viewers that are coming, so I'm a massive fan of allowing like other people to cast. You just have to remember that there are some legal reasons for why it sometimes works and why it sometimes doesn't. So whenever Twitch streamers or YouTubers go out there and go, why can't we cast? Just remember that it's not like people aren't sitting there going, oh, we don't want them to. There are like actual reasons. There always is.
Copyright.
So our like feedback or whatever we're saying means absolutely nothing on that. Because if I want to, I really want to be able to recast Siege when it's live and just sit there with chat and talk about it. But if we're comparing numbers, it's not fair to compare Valorant's entire like game numbers to that, because I would say with the budget they have, Valorant, with the amount of like marketing that goes into it, 250 something thousand is a fail if Ninja is also there and all the other big ones
bingo
the thing, right? I think that is a massive mess up compared to getting 50K on a Siege forecast. Where
you're talking about a game, you're talking about a game that was in beta like 6 months ago, right?
However,
that doesn't matter. The age of it.
We have a 5-year-old esport. Our November major got like 50,000 views.
I think the difference is that Valorant, I don't think they hit their marks either. I think if whatever they were talking about in a corporate sense, if a guy in the suit comes out and says we want to hit yada 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 numbers by yada yada date, I don't think they hit those. But
they are humiliated that they had streamers do half of their numbers. There's no way.
But also Valorant came out of the gate marketed entirely as like esports. That was their whole thing. Riot Games makes League of Legends. I still think it is that most popular esport currently besides Crossfire.
What League?
Yeah. It's like the Crossfire's. Yeah, we'll talk about Crossfire. But yeah, so Riot Games has this huge resume, and they're supposed to come out and like really do like a bang up job with this, and the hype. It didn't really live up to the hype, but I'm not saying it didn't live up to the hype compared to a game like Siege, because Siege is I hate to say it, Siege is kind of a niche market game. It's not really like a huge, I don't think it pulls in like the same kind of draw as a game like CSGO or a game like Valorant is supposed to do, because it wasn't originally marketed that way. The way Siege was originally marketed, like way back in year one, was as like a tactical, like semi-realistic kind of like, police SWAT thing.
Yeah.
And then the esports component got added onto that later, because after the sales and the the line go down in year one, and everyone was like, crap, what do we do? So they just put like a crap ton of money into the esports scene to kind of get it to where it needed to be, and that succeeded in terms of getting the game to be solvent, in terms of the game getting money. As long as it's in the black, as long as the check is clearing and they're going, okay, we're making profit off of this, we're making net profit, then I think Ubisoft looks at that and goes, okay, we're good. And go ahead.
Let's compare a few numbers here, because if we want to compare this, we should be fair. Riot Games announced that almost 3 million people played the game each day during the beta. Mm-hmm. 3 million. And you're saying that 250,000 watching the broadcast spread out over their main channel and Ninja and other big streamers? Like, that's a fail. for something that only has competitive as its strength.
I'm just going to disagree with you like hard on this. Like there's zero indications that Valorant isn't on pace to be the most dominant first-person shooter esport within the next 2 years. As soon as lands come up, this game is going to blow up even more. I'm sorry.
I mean, it might, but then that's because of the amount of money fueled into it, not because of anything else.
So
I don't think Riot cares about that. I think whatever their strategy is, they're like, if we're just going to throw more money at it to make it work, that's okay.
Yeah, yeah, that's how the ones with the money wins. We know that. That's why League is.
Well, League of Legends also has a huge audience in the East Asian market.
Yeah, but that's only because it's free. That's
an effective strategy too.
Valorant is free as well, right? Yep, massive thing. Boost the player numbers a ton as well. The problem is if you want to compare them and you want to compare like dollars spent to what you're getting back, because we have to do that, otherwise it's not a fair comparison.
Well, yeah, I agree with that too.
Then I'll promise you, spending not doing as good as you think.
Dollars that Ubisoft is spending?
Yeah. Yeah, you got to compare dollars spent on esports.
Can we even get those numbers?
You think?
No, there's no way.
Do you think that 5 years?
Dear Ubisoft, please.
Think that Ubisoft is spending the same amount of money as Valorant.
Oh well, I'm sure. Yeah. Well, because Ubisoft also has to make sure that they do Assassin's Creed Valhalla and a ton of other games on top of that.
Not even that. You can just look at like the promotion.
Yeah.
Like that's it. Like for whatever money you spend, it's pretty easy because like no one's taking just caches of money and just shoving them off a cliff.
Not in this business.
They
no.
go into something. So you will see some sort of like promotions for it, right? Maybe if you I don't know if the streamers got paid to co-cast it. Maybe they did. Maybe they didn't. It doesn't even matter. It was beneficial for them anyway, right? They definitely spent way more on marketing, way more.
What about
good for them? But I will promise you that number-wise, Valorant is not happy with where they're at right now. 100%, because the initial thing that was being said about a lot of these things and a lot of the ideas of where Valorant was going, all of it has not been as positive as.
What about Call of Duty? Could you say that like the CDL League last year, like that's a case testament to the idea of throw money at thing, get esports scene not necessarily working out? Because I haven't heard anything on in.
I mean,
Overwatch,
yeah,
that's a good one.
But then again, like you can throw a lot of money at it, and then you can test something, and then maybe if you screw over teams as much as Overwatch.
But Overwatch seems like a management. Yeah, it seems like a management problem to me in terms of how they manage the league.
I mean, it always is. If they fail, and they had enough money, then it comes down to management, right? Like COD has this problem where as long as they lock it to something, if console can come and buy out a league, then it becomes a little harder. And if you make the Overwatch thing, that's fine once you're big and established. When you're big and established, Overwatch system is actually pretty sick. Like if they could just have the teams, it would actually be pretty good. But selling slots for like $16 million and then giving a slot away for free to a team because they couldn't afford it, how pissed do you think the teams are going to be that bought the slots, right? Like that's insane and just should not happen. I think that the biggest flaw with Siege is that our player numbers are not big enough to justify something as big as the.
That's kind of what I'm getting at with the niche market argument.
Spoiled, yeah. I think we're spoiled, and I think it's ridiculous to think that we would ever be the top one shooter because we're not a shooter. It's so much more than just like you can't compare this with CS. CS has 20 years on the back, right?
Yeah.
And Valorant, it's literally copying CS. Like you took away all the flashbangs and you just gave them like spells that go around corners. And I like Valorant. It's fun. It's really good to watch. But it's not something that CS isn't. If I watch CS or Valorant, it's the same feeling I get. I understand the same thing that happens for the game. Like the weapons are even like kind of copied off each other, right? You still have your Deagle, you still have your ult, you have your like AK, your M4. you buy ammo. It's easy to make that succeed if you're a big company with infinite money. I don't think it's not our like enemy at all. We shouldn't be worried about if Valorant does good or does bad, because there's more than enough place for both to succeed. And I don't think anyone is going like that are caring about Siege esport that goes, fuck this, I'm just going to watch Valorant. And I don't think anyone from Valorant is just going to go and swap to Siege, no matter what.
I think
places.
If you look at any elimination-based 5v5 shooter game, there is such a large there's such a skill curve to it that people like want to invest time into, and typically they're probably going to invest time in like one thing, right? Because you're not going to try to like learn Japanese, German, French, and Mandarin all at the same time, right? You're going to pick one and then try to like commit to that. So I kind of agree with the idea of Valorant not like reaching into like Siege's pocket and kind of like drawing viewers away that are already attracted to Siege. What I think should be more concerning about Valorant, if there is any concern at all, is new audience members to the competitive esports scene in general, right? Like what kind of pull does Valorant have as opposed to any other game? And Valorant pull is very unique compared to Siege, and I don't think people are just going to come to Valorant just because, you know, Siege is lacking in certain things here and there. Valorant is going to offer certain things that people like, and Siege is going to offer certain things that people like.
Valorant isn't console, right?
No.
Valorant is not. Okay.
They talked about there's a prototype that they're working on, but that's as far as they've announced.
Okay, fair enough. Because that will change the demographic of what the broadcast is for as well, by quite a lot. And we have to take that like as a serious like that's an important metric. Because people that play the game are more likely to watch it, without a doubt. If you have more players, more viewers. And with console, we have the forced casual player on console that might enjoy watching it. And by forced casual, I mean like there's no pro league there, right? Like they can't compete in what they're watching. Everyone on PC or on Valorant is forced to be able to play on PC. So you're playing the same. Like it's the same thing you're playing. Maybe not against the same people.
Same role.
But surely that's a little bit of an easier jump.
Got that nailed really well in terms of like people get to play the same exact kind of game that they play like in ranked matchmaking. The issue I think if they did that in ranked matchmaking in Siege is that games would run like forever. But games run forever in CSGO, so I don't know. Maybe people would be okay with that.
If you play console and controller and you watch Pro League, that game does not even look close to what your game looks
like. Not even remotely.
Yeah, and I mean, you can say that about watching me on PC versus them, but so okay, in my video I highlighted that 3-minute and 30-second pause. In that time period, there would have been probably like 3 to 4 rounds of Valorant played. So that's 3 to 4 more times that there was an opportunity to clutch. That's 3 to 4 more times there was an opportunity for an ace, for a 4K, for a 3K. Now listen, Valorant and Siege are completely different games. Okay, we can't say, okay, well, how do we get to that fast of a round? Okay, well, maybe we should have a minute 20. No, you can't do that. All right. But here's my idea. This is where I'd like to see, I'd like to see innovation in the production. First of all, how do we spectate Siege? Okay. We need probably there should be fixed cameras in each room. I think that's one idea that I've heard tossed around. That sounds really exciting. Like somewhere in that room, there's an anchored camera in position. And if you see like a smoke behind a deployable shield, this anchored camera will get you a view of that smoke behind the deployable shield, as well as the person who's pushing them, and tell that story so much more effectively than just spectating the smoke behind the shield. Like that's so boring to watch, a smoke standing behind a shield, looking through slits. And that's where the action's coming, but the perspective that you're watching is awful. Okay. So
that wouldn't be difficult to model either, wouldn't it? Because we literally have cameras. It wouldn't
be hard at all.
Just make an invisible camera.
This is a little bit more difficult, but so that 3-minute and 30-second break between rounds. The problem is that one round, it might be 3 minutes and 30 seconds. The next round, it might be, I think like a minute 30, I want to say is the shortest it can possibly be between the prep phase, the reveal phase, all that. If there was a kill in the first second of the round, it would be like a minute 30. So what if when watching, we had the game actually on a delay? And imagine in the caster's ears, after a round finishes, somebody said, hey, I'm 3 minutes. This person is 3 minutes ahead of the casters. They're saying next round, first kill happens at 3 minutes, at 2 minutes into the round. Then the casters know, okay, I now have somewhere around 3 minutes to burn. And, that gives me a clue there. Also, we have this that we can talk about. Maybe we show these highlights in between. Like, if you think about the NFL, there's plays. It's very comparable in a lot of ways because there's plays, but in between each play, they don't watch the players in the huddle. They watch a replay of the previous play, and they talk about it. They break it down, and then they snap back right in time for the snap, and then you're back into action. That's the way that Siege should be. But in order to do that effectively, you have to have it on a delay to know what happens the next round ahead of time, so that you can schedule how much time you have to burn by reviewing the previous round. Either that or you do picture in picture. I don't know. We need some type of innovation there. Like, yes, we're not going to change Siege at its core. Like, we're not going to go down to 2 minute rounds and comp. It's not going to happen. But how can we entertain the audience during that downtime better than we currently are? And
yeah, you made a good point about the replays, I think.
Let me say one more thing here. My fear, and the reason I made that video, is that we're going to land in NA League, and they're going to think, okay, we're on LAN. Everything's solved. We're good. We can do picture in picture now. No, if we are not innovating the way that we are spectating Siege, and we just roll out to NA League like we're playing online, only we now have picture in picture, we failed. And until we innovate in that area, in my opinion, Siege will always be a niche game.
Well, I think a lot of companies are dealing with that conundrum right now, where I think that they're once COVID is effectively done as done as you can get, any kinds of problems that they're experiencing right now, they're just going to say like, oh, it's because of COVID, it's because of COVID, we're fine. And then once they're done with it, it's like, oh wait, we still have to deal with this thing. We thought it was going to get magically fixed,
right? And
then it's not. You made a good point, I think, in your video about replays. So many of these replays during the broadcast, dude. It's just like,
yes.
I'm like, what? There was like this really, and I'm thinking back to myself, like there was this really cool play that happened that kind of like turned the round around, and then it just wasn't there. It's like, why?
And then
that never happens in the NFL. They get that maybe once in a couple of times. They'll miss like a really crucial play. There's a lot that you can learn from the NFL in terms of like how to do an effective broadcast. My goodness, they try because they spend a lot of money.
Yes.
Right. They have a crap ton of money. Obviously, it's the NFL, but they really do a good job of trying to keep like the viewer experience like engaged in terms of like there's got to be something going on at every single frame, unless they cut away to 20 minutes of commercial break in State Farm. Obviously, and then I mute the TV during that portion of the broadcast. But
we may be panicking a little too much.
Zorano's looking at some stats. Let's hear it.
Yeah, I've been looking at this. So, like, we've hit 230K peak viewers at big events for Siege as well, right? We've actually hit over 300K ones. And we definitely, sure, we're not hitting those numbers anymore. We can't compare live to LAN. I don't know. So the Valorant one, that was like a major, right?
It was the first. It was the first like first big sanctioned.
I forget.
Yeah. Okay. Well, either way, if it's whether it's LAN or not, there will be more hype about it being first, right? If we check Valorant when it released compared to now,
as far as but that's because they did the Twitch beta drops. You remember what they did with that? It was falsely high.
Yeah, exactly. But that's important. I also think the majors were like way too high in Siege because of the drops. That was not fair. Like, I don't believe those viewer numbers would have been there if the drops weren't. Now, then we can argue, is that a good or bad thing? I don't really care. Like, we're looking at this as if viewer numbers mean anything. And like you got to take it with a grain of salt, because unless those people play the game, buy skins, talk about it, the viewer number itself doesn't mean anything, right? Like people that are there to get a drop don't add anything. They're not going to go out and buy skins. Sure, you can sell them to sponsors and be like, look how many we have. But at one point, sponsors are going to realize how much they get back for their money. Either way, right? So that's going to matter a little. Siege is fairly like stable for a long time. Like we have massive spikes, and then we have very low or medium averages. But you said if we don't change the spectating, Siege is going to stay a niche game. I think Siege will stay a niche game no matter what they do, because even if we make spectating and the esport side like really enjoyable to watch, if they ever go and try and play the game is too difficult to get into. I think that is way more of an issue than the spectating thing. I don't watch stuff like Formula One, or I don't really watch sport except for MMA. But Formula One, I assume, I'm sure people are gonna like rail me in the comments. NFL stuff like that. Like when there's Super Bowl, how much playtime is there in a full Super Bowl?
About like
actual play
like play clock, like actual.
I don't know that
compared to the cast.
It's probably
the cast is exorbitantly longer because it's basically a holiday. I mean, I joke about it, but it's like Super Bowl Sunday is like literally it gets the same amount of attention. I think the actual play time is much shorter.
The point is
super low.
Yeah.
The point is that we are completely okay with wasting our time if we enjoy whatever we're watching there, right? Like if they can just make it entertaining.
Yeah, people got to be engaged.
But that comes down to that comes down to like maybe it's harder to enjoy the downtime if the community is all pissed at each other. Like everyone's just in a bad mood. It's much worse to sit there and chat when there's 3-minute downtime going, oh, I hate this operator. Oh, I hate this.
Anytime they do a reveal, anytime they do an operator reveal, the Twitch chat is just like, OP, nerf.
I swear, the 3-minute downtime is less annoying if you just turn chat off. Like that actually slightly improves it. It's
I don't even watch with chat on.
It still sucks to have to.
My brain will literally.
But that improves
like.
Yeah. So if that improves a little bit, I think it is unrealistic to change. Like there's so many nice quality of life things we can change, but I don't think it will boost the viewer numbers. I think the only way they can do that is through way better marketing and way more aggressive marketing, and then much better onboarding. Because I just did the no game or no plan, no game thing with 4 people that have never played Siege before. And fuck me, this game is difficult.
Yeah.
It is so insane. You like someone spawns in with an operator and they go, okay, what does this do? They're like, oh, well, it does this and this. Okay, fair enough. Then they see him in Lucy Trap, and they're getting slowed. They just realized that goo mines and captain can shoot, so they shoot the Lucy Trap. They're like, what the hell? Of course, the next logical conclusion is that you can walk up to it and punch it. Because if it doesn't break with bullets, it probably breaks with your hand.
Obvious.
How did you figure this one out? Right? Like, there's this with every single thing in Siege, where like, if you start out new, you're basically in for getting destroyed.
Sounds great.
I don't think it's the same in CS, right? CS is so insanely easy to start. You have like 4 gadgets, and you even have a limited amount of money. So you need to be doing like decent before you start unlocking. Like you're not going to be playing an AWP on the 3rd round, right? Maybe if you're really bad, you're never going to be playing AWP because you spend all your money to start with. So you really get like guided into how to play everything. And I think that screws Siege over because we are climbing in overall viewer stuff unless we take the peaks into consideration, which is not fair. We can't look at invitational numbers, right? Like that would screw us over. Then we're basically failing at everything. But if we look at CS majors compared to all the immense amount of reruns there is of esport on CS, then that would be a massive failure as well. COVID has screwed over esport in general.
Keep this in mind.
The amount of orgs that have shut down.
Keep that in mind, Zeronic. Valorant launched during COVID. Like, we're talking about a game. I don't even want to get back to Valorant. Just forget I even said that. Like, because they're two different games. Valorant and Siege. Okay, but let me ask you this. So clearly,
it's a good point.
Wait, hold up. Yeah, but there's an important thing with that. You're talking about Valorant launching. I'm talking about the organizations. The organizations don't magically get money depending on when the game launches, unless they get money from the developer. The organization does not have money, to go into Valorant versus going into CS versus going into Siege, no matter when it launches. That's not how that works. So unless they provide them a promise of, we will give you 10 million within the next 2 years if you sign for us. But that's
are you saying they did that?
That doesn't No, I'm saying unless they did, then the organizations didn't have more money. Right? Like, whether they choose to go with Valorant or go with Siege, like that doesn't have anything to do with when.
Well, no, what I'm saying is that because Valorant launched in the middle of a pandemic, literally they've never had a LAN or anything. Wouldn't you say that, like, seeing what the pandemic has done to other esports, wouldn't you say that it's also, hurt them as well?
Oh,
I mean,
yeah, I think everybody's kind of struggling right now.
I mean,
yeah.
It's hurt everyone.
I think that what I want to ask you, Alex, and because I agree with what you said there, that and you made a lot of really good points. Probably the best way to increase viewership is to increase player count. I think this game is ridiculously punishing on beginners. So let me ask you this: is your answer, or is your mind, well, we're always going to be this way, or is your mind, how do we fix it?
I hope we're going to stay this way, because that's what makes it special. And
is that what you're saying? Like, you don't want it to grow, you don't want it to blow up?
No. There is a very big difference between that. I wouldn't go out and change chess just to have more people play it. If that's an okay way to compare it, I'm completely okay with Siege never breaking 100 million players, and just staying where we are. I don't have any financial incentive. I'm going to be fine whether we have this amount of players or twice as many. So for little personal dumb me, it doesn't matter. But I would not like to see Siege massively change just to
I think from a
go up on esport, because I don't need to measure. I don't need to measure myself against the other games, the other esports. I don't need to say that, oh, I have the best one. That's not important. If I have fun in the game, that's all I care about. I still enjoy watching it. There's a lot of things that I would like to see improved, but I'm afraid that if we start comparing instead of just start coexisting, then things we're chasing something that we don't want to.
I think from a purely selfish point of view, it would be great if Siege broke 1 million players just for YouTube, because then there'd be more people watching my videos, right? Obviously, but
unless they're all in it.
Yeah, but from a esports perspective, I think the only way that we're going to make the game more appealing is to kind of help people with that skill. I don't even call it a skill curve. It's more like a skill wall, and you have to climb it. Right? There's really not a lot of resources in game to kind of there's the training grounds thing with the situations. And it's okay, here, go in and shoot a bunch of bots. And it's that doesn't teach anything about the game's core mechanics. That doesn't show anything. What they should be doing is guiding players through perspectives of how the game is played in a competitive sense. And that should be, talking about team composition and what makes a certain kind of team composition work on a certain kind of map. There was this meme that I saw of the astronaut looking at the astronaut looking at the world that's something else, and the guy's wait, it's all that? It's it has been, and it was this meme with Siege where it was wait, it's all map knowledge. It's always has been. It's that's pretty much hits the nail on the head. I mean, I think that you can kind of boil it down to map knowledge and destruction, and knowing what to blow up, and knowing where the defenders are going to put stuff, and knowing where the attackers are going to come from to get rid of the stuff that you put up. And you just kind of it's you're trying to the attackers are trying to break apart a puzzle piece that the defenders have set up, and the defenders are trying to keep that puzzle piece intact. And the more parts of the puzzle the defenders keep together, the higher their chance of winning the round. And the more parts that the attackers manage to break, the higher their chance of winning. But that all got into a whole, but that just sounds completely abstract to somebody who has no idea what the game is about. That sounds like gobbledygook, right? So I think there should be more done to kind of, help people kind of understand how the game works rather than trying to change the game fundamentally, because then the people who are already here are probably going to get irritated and leave. I think that is a very real problem.
There's a super important question with like, are we looking for infinite growth? Is that where we say success for Siege, or like what's the metric of doing better? Is it viewer numbers? Is it that the ones that are watching are more happy? Because what happens if we double the viewer numbers, but the core people, the ones that watch now all the time, that watched from year one till now, what if they stop enjoying it, but we get twice the viewers? From a monetary standpoint, pretty good. But for some reason, this seems to be the thing with all big businesses right now, and I'm sure this is an issue for Ubi. They probably don't see it as an issue, but all companies are looking to just grow and grow and grow. The only thing that is important is to have more than you had last year, and more again. Very few are worried about actually just doing better. And not in terms of just making more money, but at some point, the infinite growth is okay if it just stagnates for a bit. And we can all take like a couple of years or days or a fucking hour to just appreciate that there are even people that want to watch something as complex as Siege Esport. I think that's like, actually after this little conversation, I'm more confused that we have the amount of viewers that we do, because it is like, holy hell, you got to know a decent amount of
the story in the broadcast. Like the casters do an excellent job. I think that casting Siege is probably the most difficult esport to cast that I've ever seen.
Oh my gosh! Yeah.
Imagine 3 minutes of downtime every round. But I think for me, I agree with you. It's okay if the growth goes like this and then back like this. Like I don't know if you saw my hand. Like if you see lines like this, that's okay. Like but I think that when you hit those lulls, you have to really self-examine. And if you're in that moment, if you're in that lull where you're not growing and you're looking and you're blaming only external things, oh, it's COVID, oh, it's this, oh, it's that, and you don't look internally and say, what can I do better? Then you're not likely to hit that upswing again. So that's where
100%. But you don't like it. There's also there's a trap there, right? Because you don't want to look at the low thing and say, okay, we have to change everything because we have to get up here. So I completely agree with you. Don't blame COVID for everything. That's ridiculous. But it has had a massive negative impact on like almost all esport orgs. Sponsorship money are down across the board for almost everyone. Because orgs are dropping out in like games across, and not just Siege. We've seen plenty of places. Orgs are dropping out. Sponsorship money are getting lower. Viewership is getting lower. So then sponsorship money gets lower again, because now you can't go out and sell and say that, well, we have 2 million people watching our stuff when it's only 200,000 all of a sudden. That's a massive, like that really means something. I know people that I know orgs that couldn't sign 6-digit deals, right?
Yeah.
Because of COVID happening now. And that sucks. They had to cut out stuff because the sponsors like, well, you know what, you promised us this amount of views, or you promised us that you were going to be playing in these leagues against these teams and blah blah blah, and now you can't anymore. And like we've seen, so this is not something that's talked a lot about or shown a lot, but if you go around and like check different orgs, there are different orgs now that has less sponsors than they used to. They've just been quietly removed. Then you can try and do the math on that, why that happened, because the org itself is probably not affected by only one game. Most are in more games, right? So it wouldn't just be for CS or just for Siege. It's the overall numbers in general, for at least for the bigger ones. So that kind of matters. then there's the I don't know if that has a big impact, but the viewer numbers in general in esports have dropped on everything. Even though Valorant had a really good one now, if we look at all the other ones, they all like kind of dip down, and I'm not sure why. I haven't heard a good explanation yet, except for that a lot of people are getting extra.
I think there's some truth.
What do you guys think of the idea that the game can last,
I don't know,
upwards of like 5 to 10 years? You think that's a reasonable assumption to make right now? Like that it could be that sustainable?
It can. Yeah, I think
that's the game that we have to play then. If we're looking at in terms of like improving the esports scene, we have to kind of look at it from a generational perspective. Because especially if you're comparing it, if you want to go that route of comparing it to other games like CS:GO. CS Source came out when I was like a little kid. Like I pretty much, I guess if you talk about like me being like 4 feet tall, you know, CS kind of like grew up alongside with that. And CS:GO is at its height now, way past that. I mean, there are people that are getting into Siege right now that I know that are still in high school. In terms of getting the game to kind of work in a way that we've worked out all the kinks. We know exactly what kind of formula we want to do. We know exactly what works. You can only do that with a lot of time. It takes a lot of time to figure that stuff out. Just like Siege itself, there are a lot of aspects of the meta that people didn't understand for upwards of a year and a half. You know, I don't think a lot of people really realize the importance of vertical play as much in Siege until a lot of time passed and people started to kind of experiment, like going, hey, wait a minute. What if now it's all over the place.
Almost got too much all of a sudden.
I think that, and also if you look at it, like I'm just looking at it from a perspective of like comparing Siege to other successful esports scenes without trying to draw too much from them and like copy paste it. Because I think that's something that a lot of that's like marketing fail 101 that happens a lot with big businesses where they're like, well, if we just like copycat this formula and apply it without like borrowing ideas imitation is the sincerest form of flattery, right? Borrowing ideas is one thing. Trying to fit a square into a round hole is not a good idea, though. And if you look at other popular esports scenes, like especially if you look at like the Korean market, I mean the amount of street clout that a lot of these like StarCraft casters get, like they're household names. Like people know who these people are just in very casual like family settings in some instances, which to me just sounds absolutely crazy, right? Like I couldn't, go like I have a hard enough time trying to explain what I do to my family at Thanksgiving, right? Like it's a very esports in general. Sorry?
Wait, are you saying if you don't say interrobang? Are you saying you don't say interrobang at a
maybe it depends on which one you go to. I don't know.
I'm with you there.
Flanked and I are on the same page there. We're from the same state. That you do what for a job? It's like,
yeah. I think you make a great point there, Greg. I really do. I think that's important to say.
Yeah.
And you know what? Let's finish up on that. I was going to throw a little jab in there, but I think listen.
No, do it. No, throw your little jab in. It's healthy.
Siege has been out for 5 years. We don't have a training ground. We don't have a practice range. We don't have we talked about how the new player experience is awful in Siege. Situations don't even come close to reflecting what a new player needs to learn. Like we haven't had a new map in 2 years.
Here.
Don't worry. All right. No. I'll give you the best response. CS 1.6 came out. Top dollar. Then they released Source. They had to release a full, completely useless game before they made one that actually did well.
That's a good. I didn't think about it like that.
Got Source. They're like, what the hell is this? And everyone wasted their time on Source, and even Valve went, what the fuck?
Oh man!
And then they made the CS:GO, and that slams. I think there's so
didn't Hyperscape get a training ground or like a firing range?
Yes. And I think that is pretty much just the entire Hyperscape team looking at Siege stats and going like, we can do it. It has to be.
Oh man, yeah. Yesterday,
we need that in Siege. Like there is no excuse. But again, like we had that conversation a million times where we both want it real bad. We're probably not going to use it as much as we want, but it pisses us off that we don't have it because it should be there. At least that's the way I look at it. I'm going to use it like maybe once a PlayStation session, maybe, probably not. Maybe once a week.
I'd use it all the time. Like whenever I was getting into Valorant, the training range that they have there with all the weapons, I was using that all the freaking time to get like the recoil patterns down. And I mean, you get like training grounds and that's the appropriate term for it now. And in Siege, and it's like if you're trying to let's say you want to like practice the recoil on a defender gun, it's like, okay, well, good luck. You can do the hostage thing and then like wait like a million years.
Well, the problem is, that's not fair to compare. That's not fair to compare because in CS and Valorant you need to practice it because the recoil patterns are predictable. They're not in Siege.
Well, maybe I'm just bad and I need that crush. I don't know.
You can't predict.
We'll find out. I think that's a slight oversight. Personally, I think that would be a good thing to do.
100%. It needs to be there. It's a massive fuck up that they don't have it, and there's no excuse. But it's probably not going to boost the numbers. It's the core game, and how that is to play for newer players. Because most of your casual players
unheard of to introduce new game modes in along the 5-year development process of a game. That is not like unheard of. I mean, Valorant launched with what? Spike Rush.
Give me my TDM mode. Dang it!
They didn't even launch with Spike Rush. Valorant did not launch with Spike Rush, and then they've introduced 2 new game modes since then.
Give me Sweet Hunt back.
Wait, what is that?
I'm just saying, like you're saying that the game is so like if we have a training grounds, it's not going to boost the player numbers. I agree with that, but a different game mode could, because like maybe a new game mode that's not as punishing, but has the Siege mechanics.
Sure.
I mean, I'm not arguing. The reason I'm round up is because it's been 5 years and we've never had one new permanent game mode introduced in the Rainbow
they
Six
just
Siege.
stay around for like a couple weeks, right? It's kind of
yeah. We have hostage and security. It sucks, but it stayed in the game. I think that's more of a I don't know, man. Like I think Siege is just one of those things where we should just only have bomb. I truly believe that Siege would be better off if we only had that. CS is only played in one way competitively, at least, and then sure you have all the extra maps, and that is super fun. But I think Siege could do well with. I think they could do fine if they just had bomb and nothing else. Maybe not. I don't know, but I think Siege has to we have to accept that Siege is a specialized little creature full of bugs, and it's never going to be perfect. I think even in 5 years from now, there's still going to be plenty of bugs. I think it's quite together with chewing gum and
that's a great
but it doesn't make the game not enjoyable. Like I still enjoy it. It's still an amazing game. There's nothing else that is even remotely close to scratching that itch. Even if I go play Valorant, like I enjoy that. I enjoy CS. But it's kind of like comparing a very, very, very simple thing to a big mess.
True. There's just something about doing and execute in Siege and getting it right with a coordinated group of people where you're just like, that's how you do it. That's a great feeling. Same on defense. You do a proper hold with good coordination. It's just like there's something about it that's just different from other shooters. You know, it's like if you play Valor CSGO, it's just like, oh wow, he popped off and did a crazy flick 360 no scope. Wow, good job. You know, like I haven't seen that a million times already. Right? Like Siege offers very unique gameplay that no other shooter does.
I just think I don't know. I think you got too riled up about it, the fact that it has been 5 years, because if you look back at the video you made yourself, where you said how many things have changed. Like how shit was it when it started? If we improve the same amount in the same time span, then we're at a really good place. I think if we just look at that, if we don't start devolving and like going back, if we just keep moving forward, even if it's small little baby steps, then one day it's going to be really good. But there's been so much improvement, man. Like, just think back about how when Thermite was your only breacher and you couldn't see anything on a night mode in ranked, and you were forced to play secure areas, you couldn't even choose.
Let me give you one counterpoint. There's also been a lot introduced in the game that makes it more difficult on new players. So in that video, I legit had 7 operators to choose from on each side, and we were playing on house. Now, you dropped me on house, and I was fumbling around like I looked lost on house. Imagine being a new player, 50 some operators, and you drop you on Villa. Have fun. On Villa.
Yeah, this wasn't even my point. Someone, because I said the same rant with like how difficult it is to get into Siege, and someone said, "What about?"
I played Tarkov once.
You played?
I got shot in the stomach, and then I had to run away, and that was. That's
my first experience as well. I got shot in the stomach and then bled out. How does games that are like taking pride in being difficult and unforgiving, how did they even remotely succeed? And I sound like such an elitist prick when I say that, like, maybe Siege should just be difficult. Like, maybe that's okay. Maybe it's okay that you started and
my mind counter to yours. My mind goes to maybe we can introduce another element of Siege that isn't as difficult.
There needs to be lighter fare.
Without taking anything away from what
there definitely should be lighter fare.
Oh, yeah.
I thought that the Sweet Hunt mode was a perfect example of that. I give it back.
Yeah.
And I'm coming to the
where I'm at on that.
I agree with you on the special events are awesome. My fear is that they're taking away from, like, are we working on any type of permanent new game mode in Siege? Or are we just saying that these special events are going to fill our cup for and then go away?
Are they working on a new game mode in CSGO?
Wasn't there the arcade?
What's that?
I'm saying, are they working on a new permanent game mode in CS? Well, I guess they are. I don't know. I haven't played CSGO. I have no idea.
Whatever they want, right?
Operations or
they keep coming out with like their new what? Yeah.
Yes.
They had their little battle royale as well at one point.
Yeah, that was weird.
Actually, still have that. That was weird. I'm with you. I think we should have something else as well. But I think it should take I don't know if it should take the place. I think it should take the spot of casual.
I can't do it.
It's horrendous. I don't think
can't do it.
I know. Yeah, but I will promise you, when we look through the comments, there will be people going, "I love casual. Casual's the best." There's probably not going to be that many, hopefully. But no,
I just don't get the point of sitting outside the building waiting for someone to peek simulator. Yeah, I just no, I can't.
For 3 minutes.
Casual should be shorter, not longer. And I understand why. It has to be longer.
I agree. I think the same with newcomer. No, newcomer is not a way to teach people how to play. Here you go, 4 minutes. Spend 3 of them looking at the window, and then walk up to the window. And
that's really engaging. Yeah.
Like, that's newcomer.
Yeah.
But fuck. So we're solving 2 different issues, because if we're at the new game mode that's more forgiving, it's not going to teach people how to play Siege, and we still have the problem when they need to make the jump. But we will get more people into play that will have more fun. And maybe that's going to make people want to watch comp, and then maybe...
No, I don't know. Because here's the thing. With Siege, you got a lot of things coming at you all at once. Okay, one shot, headshot, extremely fast time to kill. 2, unique operators, and a lot of them. 3, destruction. 4, the most complex maps that exist in any first-person shooter that's an elimination-style shooter. So you got those 4 things all coming at you from every direction and every second of every round all at once. So can we take maybe like 2 of those, and we keep them in this game mode, and then they get the wrap of that, and now they're introduced into the next 2. I don't know. That's kind of where my mind goes.
What if they allocated some capital and some time to making a unique map with unique operators? I guess for that wouldn't work, because then people would freak out and they'd be like, they're not adding new content to the main game. Maybe not like an entirely new operator, but just like, I don't know where I'm going with that train of thought.
What?
What about a preset game mode though? Like a preset where you have like all the maps, but there's only one bomb site on the map, and you're like operators are forced. Done.
That's kind of what
And
I'm.
you're
Yeah, like
forced in
more
terms of a lineup
constraints.
that makes sense.
Because one of the things that makes the
You
game
have
difficult to play is the fact
Yeah.
that there's like
like
there's so many options. There's literally so many options that you could do that a lot of people coming in get paralysis by analysis, and they just don't know. So that's why people sit outside of a window for 3 minutes and don't do anything, and then get snapped by a frost mat.
what if you queue up? Like when you queue, so you queue for this like little constraint game mode, and you click. Well, I want to be an entry fragger. You choose that,
Like
and then
forced
you queue.
rolls.
And that's your. You get kicked
I like
into
that.
a game where, you get kicked into a game where for this entire
actually
game
like that a
you're
lot.
only gonna get the operators that are like marked as entry frag, and you're forced. Then you go and you're like, well, I want to be support. You're only gonna get support, and the game will force queue you, so you don't have 5 entry fraggers ever on a team. And you could even make it so it's legitimately the same as unranked, but make it so there's only 2 bomb sites on each map, and you always know which ones are the bomb sites. Make it, I don't know, 2 rounds or 3 rounds on each side. But make it long enough that you can actually learn from what you're doing. And then maybe every 2 months or every month, it swaps around. So instead of it being gym
I really
and
like that
bar
idea
and
a lot.
clubhouse, it becomes CCTV and basement. And everyone goes through, and if you play this, you will slowly.
It's like
surely
drills.
Learn how to play.
It's like drills if you're playing a sport. Again, the football analogy, because it's the most immediate thing that comes to my head. You practice, a particular kind of play like over and over and over and over again. Oh, there goes my mic. And then you anticipate a certain kind of play in regards to that too, and you prepare for certain kinds of scenarios. But you do it again and again and again. And in this game, map pools have kind of, I think, are a good step in the right direction there too. I don't know about you, but I've gotten a lot better at Oregon recently than I used to be, just because it's the only map that I get to play in rank, which is great. I think that's one thing CS:GO gets to benefit from a little bit with map pools and actually getting to pick the matchmaking that you queue in for map wise. But I don't know if Siege has the population to support that kind of system. I don't know if that would work.
Yeah, that's a weird spiral, because you might get it if you do it, but you might also screw everything up if you do it, right? Like if there's not enough, you just killed the queue. And if
I don't know,
if people love it, you might actually improve the queue. So yeah, it's dangerous. I wish they did situations like that though, like drills. So you spawn in your situation, you have like Thatcher, Thermite, Hibana, Sophia, and Sledge in a 5-man lineup. You get to play each role of them, and you're against pre-placed bots in the site that all have like decent positions, and you literally have these like GPS things. Like when you need to park your car in a certain spot in a video game or something, you follow the arrow, you run up to the wall as Thatcher. It says EMP here. Okay, boom, wall electrified, EMP'd. Okay, now Thermite has to open the wall. You have 15 seconds to do it, or it gets sapped. And you go through each and every step in the situation until you understand, why am I throwing a smoke? And there will literally be a little outline saying, throw a smoke here to cover connector door.
You know what's going to happen on Siege Twitter after they do that though? There's going to be a point in that scenario where it's like, why is this telling people to repel on this at 26 seconds as opposed to 23 seconds? A mega lol W casuals. Yeah.
Or someone goes
of working on a video talking about the situations. That's very similar to what you're talking. People are going to think I'm ripping you off, but let it be known, I'm already working on it. My idea is a little bit different. But
disclaimer.
Oh, we're on the same track. Definitely.
I like that idea a lot, though. Good.
We got to wrap it up here. I gotta get going here. But Gregor, thank you so much for joining us. Where can people find you?
You can find me on YouTube at Gregor, and I changed all my socials a while ago to consolidate them and make them easy to find. From my Instagram, Twitter, and Twitch. It's just Gregor 16mm. Gregor 16mm, all one word. It's a camera lens. That's the idea.
So we'll have some links down below. We'll make sure YouTube, Twitch, and Twitter will be linked down below. So there'll be links down there.
Thank you so much.
If you want to track him down. Thank you for joining us, man. It's been a really, really fun discussion. We didn't get to get into our operator picks that we want for rework, so maybe next episode, Alex and I will get into that.
That's okay. Twitch chat will ask me for sure.
I enjoyed the discussion here. It was a fun episode, man.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. Thank you for having me, Zoronic Flanked. Is a lot of fun for sure. Yeah.
All right. Thanks everybody for hanging out. We appreciate it. We will see you guys on the next one.
Deuces.